I never imagined my own parents would be the ones to risk my child's life. They drained the $150,000 I'd spent years saving for my daughter's heart surgery and called it family help. My mother laughed and thanked me for funding my sister's wedding. I wasn't even invited. I smiled, nodded, and walked away without a word. That same afternoon, while a bride walked down the aisle, authorities stormed the ballroom and arrested her groom. Minutes later, my phone lit up. It was my father, sobbing uncontrollably. What he didn't know was that I'd planned this long before anyone said, "I do that day alone." My name is Olivia. I work in healthcare, long shifts, early mornings, the kind of job where you learn to stay calm while everything around you is loud and urgent. At home, it's just me and my daughter Emma. She's 7, small for her age, bright eyes, a laugh that turns into heavy breathing if she runs too fast. She was born with a heart condition, something doctors explained to me in careful voices like words might shatter if spoken too loudly. Our mornings were quiet, cereal bowls clinking, the hum of the refrigerator, Emma sitting at the table swinging her legs asking if today was a good heart day. Some days were, some weren't. I learned to measure time differently, not in years but in appointments, checkups, and the dates circled on the calendar for her surgery. I started saving when she was 2, a separate account, every extra shift, every bonus. Birthday money from relatives went straight in. I skipped vacations, bought used furniture, said no when people asked why I never treated myself. I told them the truth. I'm saving my daughter's life. Most people understood. Some looked uncomfortable and changed the subject. My parents lived across town. On the surface, we were a normal family. Holiday dinners, group photos. My mother, Margaret, liked control disguised as concern. My father stayed quiet, always smoothing things over, and my younger sister, Melissa, had a way of floating through life with a soft landing every time. New car, big engagement ring, a wedding everyone was already calling the event of the year. When the surgery date was finally confirmed 6 weeks out, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Fear, too. But mostly, hope. That's when my mother suggested putting her name on the account. In case of emergencies, she said. What if something happens to you? It sounded reasonable. She was Emma's grandmother. Family. I remember hesitating, my finger hovering over the screen. Emma was coloring beside me, tongue between her teeth, completely trusting the world around her. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself blood meant safety. I added my mother to the account. 2 days later, Melissa sent a picture of her wedding venue. Crystal lights, white roses, a price tag I didn't ask about. I stared at the photo longer than I should have, a strange tightness in my chest, like my instincts were trying to say something my heart wasn't ready to hear yet. I noticed the money was gone on a Tuesday morning. Nothing dramatic, no alarms, no alerts, just a number that didn't make sense. 0. I refreshed the app, closed it, opened it again, still 0. The account that had taken me 5 years to build. The account I checked every week like a ritual. Gone. My hands started to shake. I told myself there had to be a mistake. A glitch. A temporary hold. I called the bank from my car before work, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. After a few minutes on hold, a calm voice confirmed it. The withdrawal was authorized by the joint account holder, my mother. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I drove straight to my parents' house, the same house I'd grown up in, same porch, same doorbell. My mother opened the door with a smile like this was a social visit. "What happened to my money?" I asked. She blinked once, then waved her hand like I'd asked about the weather. "Oh, we needed it." I said. "Your sister," she replied. "The wedding. Prices are outrageous these days." "You understand." I reminded her about Emma, about the surgery, about the date circled on the calendar. My mother leaned against the doorway and sighed. "She'll be fine," she said. "Kids bounce back. This wedding only happens once." I felt something crack inside me, slow and quiet. Then she smiled. "Anyway, thank you. You really helped your sister out." That was when I asked about the invitation. I already knew the answer, but I needed to hear it. She didn't even look apologetic. It's a big day, limited space. And honestly, Olivia, you always bring things down with medical talk. Medical talk. That's what she called my daughter's heart condition. I left without another word. Sat in my car for almost half an hour staring at the steering wheel. I didn't go inside to cry. I didn't call anyone to vent. I went home and made Emma lunch like it was any other day. That night, I noticed something else. Melissa had blocked me on social media. No messages, no explanation, just silence, like I'd already been written out of the story. 2 days later, Emma struggled to catch her breath walking up the stairs. I carried her the rest of the way, held her while she slept, listened to the uneven rhythm of her breathing in the dark. That was the moment it became clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't carelessness. This was a choice. My parents had chosen a wedding over a child. My sister had accepted it without question. And I finally understood something I'd avoided my entire life. If I wanted to protect my daughter, I couldn't rely on family anymore. I needed to rely on the truth. That night, after Emma fell asleep, the house felt louder than usual. The heater clicked on and off. A car passed outside. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the calendar on the wall. The surgery date was circled in red. 6 weeks had become 4. Her doctor had moved it up after the last visit. "We shouldn't wait," he'd said, careful, professional. I nodded like I always did. Inside, I was counting hours. I didn't call my parents. I didn't text my sister. I washed dishes, packed Emma's lunch, folded laundry, normal things, survival things. But my mind kept replaying my mother's smile. The way she'd said, "Kids bounce back," like it was a slogan she'd heard somewhere, not a life on the line. The next morning, I sat in my car outside work and finally let myself think clearly. Not emotionally, logically. The account had been drained legally. That meant yelling wouldn't fix it. Begging wouldn't either. I needed options that didn't rely on their conscience. That's when I thought of Derek. My sister's fiancé always made me uneasy, too polished, too eager to talk numbers. I remembered a Thanksgiving dinner years ago when he'd mentioned shipments, delays, money tied up overseas. I'd brushed it off then. Now it stuck. I reached out to someone I barely knew. Tom, a business partner of Derek's I'd met once. We agreed to meet at a small coffee shop in the city. Nothing dramatic, just 2 people sitting across from each other, hands wrapped around paper cups. He looked tired, nervous. He didn't smile. "I can't keep pretending anymore," he said quietly, "especially after what they did to your kid." He didn't give me details all at once, just enough to understand the shape of it. Questionable payments, bills that didn't line up, money moving in circles that made no sense. He slid a folder across the table. No labels, just paper, numbers, patterns. "I'm not asking you to do anything illegal," he said. "I just don't want to be part of this anymore." I took the folder home and waited until Emma was asleep again. I spread everything out on the table. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I read, cross-checked, highlighted. What I didn't understand, I researched. What looked wrong, I flagged. By the time the sun came up, I knew 2 things. First, my sister's wedding wasn't being paid for with love or generosity. Second, the truth didn't belong to me alone anymore. I contacted the appropriate authorities and told them exactly what I had. No accusations, no emotions, just facts. They listened. They asked careful questions. They took copies. When they left my house, was quiet again. Emma stirred upstairs, calling my name. I went to her, lifted her into my arms, and felt how light she was. I pressed my cheek to her hair and made myself a promise. Whatever happened next, I would not look away. The morning of the wedding arrived quietly. No alarms, no sirens. Just sunlight slipping through the blinds and the soft sound of Emma breathing in the next room. I lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house wake up around us. Today was supposed to be a celebration. White dresses, champagne flutes, smiles stretched too wide for photographs. I stayed home. Emma padded into the kitchen in her socks, dragging her blanket behind her. I made pancakes the way she liked them, slightly uneven, with chocolate chips pressed into the batter. She sat at the table, swinging her legs, telling me about a dream where her heart was a clock that finally learned how to tick properly. I smiled and listened, even though my phone sat face down on the counter, buzzing every few minutes. By noon, the messages stopped. That's when I knew the ceremony had started. Across the city, guests were taking their seats. Programs were being passed out. Music was swelling. My mother was probably fussing over details, making sure everything looked perfect. Melissa would be somewhere nearby, nervous and glowing, convinced this was the happiest day of her life. I folded laundry, helped Emma with a puzzle. We watched a cartoon neither of us really paid attention to. I kept glancing at the clock, not with anxiety, but with a strange sense of calm. Everything that could be done had already been done. At 4:27, my phone rang. I didn't answer. It rang again and again. I let it go to voicemail. Emma looked up at me, crayons in her hand. "Aren't you going to pick up?" she asked. "In a minute," I said. "Finish coloring." At 4:35, the house phone rang. That one I answered. "What did you do?" My mother screamed before I could say a word. Her voice was unrecognizable, sharp, broken, panicked. "What did you do?" In the background, I heard shouting, chairs scraping, someone crying loudly enough that it cut through the noise. "I didn't do anything," I said calmly. "I stayed home." They stopped everything, she sobbed. They walked in right in the middle. People were watching. Cameras. Melissa was at the altar. Derek, she choked on his name. "They put him in handcuffs," she whispered, like saying it quietly might undo it. I leaned against the counter, steadying myself. My heart wasn't racing. It felt slow, focused. "Who stopped it?" I asked. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. A moment later, another call came through. My sister. I declined it. Then my father. I answered that one. "Olivia," he said, his voice shaking. "Please tell me this isn't happening. Tell me you didn't have anything to do with this. I told the truth, I said. That's all." There was silence on the line. Then a long, broken exhale. "They're saying his accounts are frozen," my father said. "The wedding planner just left. The guests are confused. Your mother is inconsolable. This is a nightmare." I pictured the ballroom, the flowers, the untouched cake, the way conversations would turn into whispers, then speculation. I imagined my mother's face, the control finally slipping. "You ruined your sister's wedding," he said quietly. I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "Your choices did that. Mine just made them visible." He started to argue, but my mother grabbed the phone back. "After everything we've done for you," she cried. "After we raised you, you do this to us. To your own family." I thought about Emma's breathing on the stairs, the calendar on my wall, the zero in my bank account. "You took money meant to keep your granddaughter alive," I said. "You laughed about it. You told me I was ruining the mood. This is the mood you chose." She sobbed harder. "We were going to pay you back with what I asked. They're seizing everything." That's when her voice broke completely. "They said it's serious," she whispered. "They said this has been going on for years." "Yes," I said. "That's what happens when the truth catches up." Melissa's voice suddenly cut in, distant but furious. "Give me the phone." There was shuffling, then her breathing sharp and fast. "I hope you're happy," she said. "You humiliated me. In front of everyone. You destroyed my life." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You accepted money you knew wasn't yours," I said. "Money meant for your niece's surgery. You blocked me. You didn't invite us. This didn't start today." She laughed a hollow sound. "You're always so dramatic. It was just money." Something cold settled in my chest. "It was my daughter's heart," I said. "And you spent it on flowers." She didn't answer. In the background, someone announced that everyone needed to leave the venue. I heard heels clicking fast, someone yelling at security, a door slamming. "I can't believe you'd go this far," my mother cried. "How could you be so cruel?" I looked over at Emma, still coloring, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Cruel," I repeated softly. "Cruel is stealing from a sick child and calling it help." I ended the call. The house went quiet again. Too quiet. I stood there for a moment, letting it wash over me. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel guilty. I felt finished. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "It's done," it read. "They have enough." I deleted it without replying. That evening, my father called again. This time he didn't yell. "They're saying he could be charged with multiple counts," he said. "It could mean years." "I know," I said. "And your mother—" He trailed off. "She keeps saying she never thought it would go this far." I stared out the window as the sun dipped behind the houses. "It already had," I said. "You just weren't looking." He was quiet for a long time. "What happens now?" he finally asked. "For you," I said. "Or for me, for all of us." I thought about that, about family dinners that would never happen again, about the photos on my parents' walls that would slowly be taken down, about how blood ties stretch until they snap. For me, I said, "I take care of my daughter." I hung up before he could respond. That night, after Emma was asleep, I sat alone on the couch. The same couch where I'd once cried quietly, afraid of what would happen if I spoke up. My phone buzzed again, this time a voicemail from my mother. I didn't listen. I didn't need to. The confrontation wasn't in the ballroom. It wasn't in the shouting or the accusations. It had happened long before the moment I chose not to look away, and there was no going back. The days after the wedding felt strangely quiet, like the air after a storm finally moves again. There were no more screaming calls, no more accusations, just updates that came through other people, softened, filtered. Derek's accounts were frozen. Everything tied to his business was under review. The venue wanted answers. Vendors wanted payment. The wedding photos were never sent out. The story everyone whispered about wasn't romance anymore. It was consequences. My father called once, voice low and tired. He apologized without really saying the words. My mother didn't call again. I heard she stayed in bed for days, telling anyone who would listen that she'd only been trying to help her family. I didn't correct her. I didn't need to. What mattered was Emma. A nurse from the hospital called to move her surgery up again. Sooner, but necessary. The number scared me at first. Then something unexpected happened. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. Coworkers shared a fundraiser. Strangers donated small amounts with notes that said things like, "For Emma, and you're doing the right thing." Within a week, we were close. Close enough that I could finally breathe. The night before her surgery, Emma asked me if everything was going to be okay. I told her the truth. "Yes," I said, "it is." And for the first time in a long while, I believed it. I didn't win anything that day. I lost the illusion that blood automatically means love. But I kept what mattered: my daughter, her future, my peace. I learned that protecting your child isn't betrayal, it's courage. And sometimes the hardest boundaries are the ones that save lives. If this story hit close to home, you're not alone. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more real stories about family betrayal and quiet justice, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.